this is Sharon. I'm here at Corridor Gallery with Paul Solevad.
Hello. Yes.
And we're going to walk through the show and see his work, and he's going to share a bit about himself and these works.
Mm-hmm. This came pretty recently from a series of drawings that I've been doing the past couple years and I'm always trying to bring my drawing into my painting. I feel like it's always been the root of all my paintings, just from a standpoint of it's always kind of the initial idea, it's the initial spark. So yeah, this one kind of has stemmed from the recent series, and I've been trying to explore a little more conceptual abstraction in the past year or two from a long-going period of time of somewhat, I would say, fairly literal storytelling and narratives in my work, which always kind of finds its way. This particular piece was I just approached it very spontaneously and just kind of moved from one shape to the next. And yeah, it's an exploration, I would say, of a conceptual landscape in some regard. Imagery of maybe a river and a wave, and down below, some form of current of that river, again, lapping waves. It really, for me, was, again, just trying not to control it too much, but obviously there's going to be imagery that's recognizable and a hint of something. So it was kind of, I was just really trying to balance out what is landscape if you're not interpreting a literal scene of a landscape. And that's kind of where I was trying to go. And that's kind of where I'm really trying to go at this point too, is I'm really always been interested in landscape, but how do I take it to another abstract level where it's not necessarily a certain scene of something per se.
Okay.
Even though obviously from someone viewing it for the first time, it is a scene of sorts. So, yeah.
So these other pieces further down the line, are these earlier works then that are more
pieces,
literal?
Yeah, these pieces that kind of come off a little more, I don't want to say cartoony, but yeah, there's, I guess, that sort of interpretation. These are probably 4 years old. And I had just I was painting in acrylics for years and years. And then I had decided, well, I want to go back and try oils again. These are kind of the beginnings of that period of going back onto oil. These are all handmade wood panels that I was doing at the time. Then I've kind of gone back to stretching. But yeah, I would say these are kind of an interesting simplification I was trying to play with in regards to landscape narratives, inserting, again, a blend of nature and then, human interaction and nature. This one is probably, I'm a huge Philip Guston fan, as many artists are. He was a huge influence on the art world. And this fascination with some stacking idea. I've always been drawn to, for some reason, the pyramid and the triangle type of shape. It's an archetype that kind of comes into my work a lot. Just like any artist, there's things that just come through over and over. So for me, it was just kind of this interesting idea of a pyramid that, again, maybe in some sort of interesting cartoonish kind of landscape background. I'd have to say I still kind of play with these simplifications, but like in this one, this is kind of, you can see these two together and go, okay, I'm trying to understand the relationship of the style maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say I've been, since these, I've been trying to kind of just take this overall concept again and then just kind of roughen it up again. So I'm always kind of bouncing back and forth. This was literally a projected drawing again that I decided I'm going to just project the drawing on this one and then see how I can overlay it and build on it and break it down and you know, just reassess. Because I've always been, like I said, trying to bring the drawing into the painting, and sometimes the translation doesn't always kind of come to the feeling that I originally had. So yeah, this was kind of just a little experiment on that. And it was kind of fun.
I'm
just
not
taking
sure
a projection and repainting it. So
I'm not sure I understand what you mean by that, by taking a projection.
I was literally projecting the drawing onto the canvas.
Oh, like using
Yeah, I
a.
have a little, whatever the little digital
Mm-hmm.
projectors are now, and just took a drawing I had in my sketchbook and just blew it up on the canvas. Literally traced it out with a black line, and then just started kind of working over it. Like this area here, I had just laid everything out and then just ghosted over that, and then kind of roughened up some of the areas. Took some, scraped it over here with the palette knife, and just kind of trying not to literally. I didn't want to go back to this kind of idea. I was kind of trying to go, okay, let's just use the drawing as a foundation because all the line work's going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
But I also wanted to obviously then take it from there and then try to free it up from that point. So I've been trying that off and on. It's been kind of interesting. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it's just like, okay, I don't feel like redoing that again on a larger scale after I've done it. It's kind of like, okay, I really have been there too much, so. Not that people, obviously people will repeat images all day long, but
Sure.
Yeah, that's kind of just where this idea has gone. So
Cool.
yeah.
Take us around the corner here.
All right. We're in that phase. Ironically, they don't, that's quite a stark difference from the previous simplified images, I would say. But yeah, they were right after I'd switched from acrylics to oils, and I was really trying to just get a feel of what the oils were doing, and just getting really messy, and just seeing, the wet on wet approach, how that was feeling to me. Again, these are narratives of, I would say, the stronger of all the series of the idea of our obvious footprint on nature. You can see a lot of images of just random pieces of garbage in nature. That one's kind of a interesting take on a fisherman type of scene. But it's funny, I really, looking back at some of this stuff, I really enjoyed kind of just the chaotic brushwork and the feel of these, compared to some of the simpler stuff. So that's why I said before, I'm always like going back and forth to some degree,
Yeah.
The term neo-expressionism, you were asking me that earlier, is obviously just, first of all, a nod to expressionism. I feel like an expressionist. That's how I identify with the most. That's my favorite kind of period of painting, just because of obviously the literal execution of the brushwork. Does it fit into traditional expressionism? Maybe yes, maybe no. I would say the German expressionists are probably my stronger, of all the periods. That's Emil Nolde is probably one of my favorites. You get into abstract expressionism, and that's, obviously you're drifting into de Kooning and Pollock and that era. But I feel neo-expressionism is my kind of reinvention of all that period of time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, you try to, as an artist, you're trying to fit yourself into a category, and that's kind of where I feel the most comfortable. Yeah.
Cool.
So, this piece again goes back to the first one where I was just kind of building different layers of images. This actually started as a still life scene. You can kind of see these shapes here were a flower from a flower pot just sitting on a table. And I kind of wasn't happy with it. So that's, again, what I do. I just go and I paint over stuff and rebuild it again. And this was another kind of exploration spontaneously of just building different images and doing line work and just kind of playing with contrasts, really. I don't really, again, here you have these triangle shapes, right? Which to me, they're almost kind of abstract interpretations of flames. So that's kind of where that title came from.
Okay.
Blue flames. And just kind of this interesting insertion of just different shapes and line work, you know.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's very musical to me. It has
Is it? Yeah.
it has sounds.
I guess it does. Yeah, for sure. Music is very influential too for me, so it's always kind of playing into my work to some degree.
Do you listen to music while you work?
I do, yeah. I listen to, I always have something going, so. This next one here, again, was kind of a play on that, somewhat in a more graffiti-esque type of exploration, just building different shapes and, you know, ideas over and over and over. This painting probably started 4 times, and I just kept going over it and over it until I just decided, okay, I've said enough with this. So, but this is kind of an exploration again into an urban kind of cityscape idea, if you will.
See that?
Yeah, but it was fun, and I haven't seen it for a while, so it's kind of fun to revisit certain aspects of it. Things that I don't do too much anymore, like take a Conte crayon and just, you know, scratch all over it and do stuff like that on a wood surface. It's, you know, kind of fun to do that because canvas is not so.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting to me how much depth it has. I can see nooks and crevices and tunnels and
yeah, just all these different little things that kind of get behind. Yeah, it's kind of cool. And then I was doing I used to do a lot of text work years and years ago. I would just write random things. Sometimes I would even write little kind of lines of poetry.
Do we have some of that? Oh, yeah.
There's a little bit of it here.
Okay, this one gives me surprises every time I look at it. I'm really curious. So? I didn't see a figure at first.
Oh, really?
And then I saw a figure, and then I saw 2 figures.
Interesting. This is probably one of my favorite pieces in the past couple years. It literally started with this drawing that I again projected, just the line work of a probably some, you know, I was just meandering around Google and looking at different Greek sculptures and stuff, and I saw this cool bust figure, this guy, you know, muscly. I thought just what a cool image that was to just try and start with. So I started with that, and it just kind of built into this whole green idea, which I didn't. Green is kind of a tricky color sometimes to work with.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of green in your other work.
No, it was, I really had, sometimes I have an idea of, because I do a lot of color work for my day job. I color match, and so I'm always obviously dealing with color all day long and thinking about how color makes us feel. So a lot of times I like to lead into an image with just okay, first of all, what is the color going to say? You know, how is it going to make a person feel about it? Is it going to direct the atmosphere of the painting? And so that's kind of where this one was going. I just thought of just green initially in this figure. And so it just kind of started from there. And then I just started building all these, again, these kind of graffiti-esque type of layered images. Again, there's the pyramid keeps coming in. These eyeballs from the earlier one, the Odyssey downstairs. Again, these shapes just start to kind of keep coming back for me. Random, just marks. You know, I can't even really sometimes explain. You know, as a lot of artists can attest to, is you don't really understand what you're doing sometimes. It just fits. It just feels good to sometimes just make marks, you know, and really just kind of arrange it in a way that, okay, image wise, this makes, you know, this feels good up here and all that. So yeah, this piece is
I love this
kind of
piece.
special to me. So and the name was kind of fun too, Herculaneum. I don't even know, like, what does that even mean? You know? So it was kind of fun. I think it just felt like, you know, Hercules slash, I don't know, a nod to Greek, you know, the Greek eras.
I love it. It's great.
Yeah, this is definitely, these 6 pieces were definitely painted, you know, pretty relatively soon together. Well, maybe over the course of 6 months or so. I have a Danish background, so I'm very interested in Norse, you know, mythology and all that as a result, just that kind of imagery. So these were just kind of different images based on that type of a genre. Vikings, you know, landing in England. This one's called Odin's Tale. Again, I'm just kind of taking that idea and then trying to warp it and twist it into, you know, what to me obviously feels good for an image. I would say this is definitely obviously the most literal interpretation of these ideas. This one again, the idea of, you know, a king and the serpent, where that comes from, just maybe just play on myth alone. Landscape in there, obviously. Again, another nod to, you know, some Viking type of image. This one, I thought of the Picasso painting, The Night Fisherman, and that definitely drove the idea behind this one. So I don't do a lot of images that are kind of set in the scene of nighttime. So the moon was kind of a very first starting point, and then just getting really heavy, dark colors in there.
Where are these in your timeline compared to the works downstairs, the 2 different styles that we saw downstairs?
These are from last year. The ones downstairs are probably, I want to say, 1920 and 21, and then these are the last couple years. So,
or 2020.
Yeah, 2020. I was really in this series. I was trying to take, you know, just the figure and just play on that whole idea. How far can I abstract it but still have it be, you know, somewhat recognizable? So yeah, that's kind of the overall kind of conversation that's occurring with these. This particular image, I had just gotten back from a trip to New Mexico to visit a friend of mine, and so that landscape out there is always very like appealing to me. The high desert, and just you'll be out on a road and you'll just see these random trucks and just machine parts out there. And so again, for years and years, I've always had this fixation for some weird reason on just imagery that is almost after humans have, you know, come and gone.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah. And again, it's kind of a nighttime, evening type of scene. There's the snake again, as from the other one.
You know, those pyramids are from humans coming and going too.
Yeah, it's true. That's a good point. Yeah, so I look at these now after, a while of being away from looking at them and trying to understand yourself again. Like,
Yeah.
why does that image keep coming in? So, I mean, this obviously literally is kind of a desert scene, so it makes sense to have a skull and some kind of snake, and obviously the remnants of a truck. And yeah, this one is again influenced of nature and man's effect, human's effect on nature, garbage, and this obvious kind of ocean coral reef type of scene. Yeah, that fascination for me of just combining nature and human influence is imagery wise, it's just like there's so much, so I always enjoy just kind of playing on those repeated ideas, whether they get super literal or they just go completely abstracted. So yeah.
But I'm curious about your color palettes, especially because you are a career colorist. So how do you choose color? How do you move through a painting with color?
I'm always trying to balance dynamic colors with playing with more muted tones, and then juxtaposing them with really dynamic, strong contrasts. Color mixing for me has kind of been a learning process, ironically, from my work, but also just kind of reinventing myself, taking kind of I only work with a few colors at a time as I go on an image. So like, it's just the process of mixing color and making sure that I actually use the colors without letting them go to waste. But what ends up happening is I'll say have 3 or 4 colors on my palette, and they start to kind of like intermix. And so if I have, say, like a yellow as kind of a base color, and then I'll start to mix another color and pull some of that into the next color, even if I choose, okay, this is going to be, say this area is going to be blue over here, but I still have some of the yellow. So then that yellow feeds into the blue, and then it starts to make this kind of muted green tone.
Okay.
So the colors always kind of talk to each other because they're literally being mixed, as a central color, and then feeding into other colors around it. And that way, overall, the palette starts to kind of get harmonized that way. So, yeah, that's kind of a very simplified explanation of that, how that goes. But
Cool.
I don't generally start with a lot of colors all at once. Just, I think, psychologically, I don't want to kind of commit to that almost. I'll start with a few colors, and then if it starts to grow from there, then, great. But I'm always trying to kind of, because my time is always sort of, compacted, so I don't want to mix a bunch and then walk away and then have to start all over,
Sure.
a few days later. So it's kind of this controlling factor, like, okay, I better not get too heavy into this, but sometimes it explodes from that. So yeah, I just I don't know. It's always interesting to see where the palette goes, and like I said before, thinking of an idea of an atmosphere of color to kind of drive the image of how the person feels. Like if obviously you're going to create a feeling of, say, an ocean scene or the Southwest. Like how does that feel when you think about it? If you're in that space, you're in an area with a lot of sun versus an area with a lot of gray and
like the Northwest, perhaps.
Yeah.
At least
so,
at this time of the year.
Yeah, but so yeah, that definitely feeds into my palette
Cool.
overall. And again, yeah, these are just more ideas based on that same narrative of human influence in nature. This is a river scene with probably some sort of, you know, metal chair in there, but again, really just trying to take the, the landscape and sort of abstract it to where it's, you kind of know, you know instantly what you're looking at. You're also like, I don't really understand what these shapes are really, you know, saying quite.
Yeah.
So just enough to kind of give the viewer an idea where I was leading, but also let them kind of like, well, this kind of looks like this to me. You know?
Yeah, they get
and I
to
don't
become
really,
a part of the interpretation.
yeah, like you can kind of determine on your own how the image grows on you. You know, so that's kind of where I always like to lead the viewer a little bit on their own that way. So, again, this was probably a visit, obviously, to the beach, and probably was walking along and saw a huge pile of driftwood, and so I just was like, that's a cool idea. So, and another Southwest influence piece. So
Cool.
yeah.
I just to share my own perspective, which I was, as I told you, working on these technical drawings for paper mills and whatnot.
Right.
And so when I saw these two in particular, and maybe leading past that a little bit further, I was thinking about the paper industry because these remind me of the papyrus flower.
Yeah.
And then we're, after that, moving on to wood for the pulp of the paper.
Okay, nice.
But I really enjoyed the opportunity to interpret it.
Right.
The space, the creative space to come to my own conclusions.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what I'm always hoping for is, you know, obviously you can decide from beginning to end what you want the viewer to take from it. Like, you know, if you're super literal, obviously, about your approach and your execution, then this is what the image is. And I just don't always, I don't go that way, you know, so.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you. All right.